The fog lay thick over Bramble Hollow that night, so thick it pressed against the trees like a silent, suffocating hand. The moon was a faint smear overhead, barely visible through the mist. The air smelled of wet pine, cold earth, and the ghostly residue of rain that had stopped only an hour before. The town slept, but the house on Crestwick Road did not. It loomed alone on a hill, its wooden frame warped by time, its windows hollow and cold like the eyes of something long dead. It was the kind of house children ran past, the kind teenagers dared each other to enter, and adults avoided without admitting why. And tonight, a single light burned inside, the first light in nearly 7 years. I remember the way it flickered through the fog as Detective Maeve Calder approached the porch. Her boots creaked on the warped boards, each step echoing the uneasy stillness of the hollow. She wasn't supposed to be there. She had come off duty hours ago, but the call she received just before midnight was enough to bring her back into the field. A missing boy, a panicked mother, and a neighbor who swore that someone was moving around in that attic. Maeve pushed open the front door, her flashlight cutting through a stale cloud of dust. The house smelled of rot, damp wood, and something faintly metallic underneath. Something she'd smelled before at crime scenes. Inside was silent. No furniture, no curtains, no signs of life, just peeling wallpaper, warped floorboards, and the faint drip, drip, drip of water leaking somewhere in the kitchen. She exhaled slowly. This place had a history. 22 years ago, the Calder family once lived here, Maeve's own family. Her father was the local sheriff back then, a stern man who believed order was something you could hammer into existence. Her mother was a ghost long before she died, drifting through the halls with a quiet sadness nobody understood. And Maeve, she was just a child who heard things in the attic that no one else believed. Tonight, she wasn't sure if returning to this house was a cruel twist of fate or something darker pulling her back. She moved deeper inside. Her voice echoed low. "Evan? Evan, if you're here, answer me." No reply, just the slow groan of the house shifting. Then, a thump from directly above her. A woman in her late 30s, sharp, observant, haunted by something she refuses to name. She distrusts her own memories of this house. Possible motive, a need to uncover whatever ruined her family. Lena Orloff, the mother of the missing boy. A tense, thin woman with trembling hands and a spine of steel. Her fear is genuine, but her story shifts slightly each time she tells it. Possible motive, hiding something about her son's disappearance. Samuel Briggs, the neighbor, retired carpenter, talks too fast when nervous, insists he saw a silhouette in the attic window. Possible motive, he once owned this house and lost it under strange circumstances. Maeve swept her light across the staircase, and there, caught in a fragment of dust and moonlight, lay the first clue. A small red sneaker, caked in mud, still warm. Evan's shoe. She crouched, heartbeat steady but mind racing. If the boy had been here recently, someone else had been with him. The attic didn't just produce noises on its own. Someone was definitely in this house. She rose and stepped toward the stairs. That was when she noticed something strange. A faint trail of muddy footprints on the wooden steps, but only going up. No prints coming down. The house exhaled a long, low groan as if warning her. Maeve ignored it and climbed. The attic door hung slightly open. Maeve reached for it and pushed, slowly, carefully. The attic was dark and cold, colder than any part of the house had a right to be. The smell hit her immediately. Dust, mildew, and something else, a sour, metallic odor that crawled up her throat like dread. Her flashlight jittered as she stepped inside. Something moved in the far corner. Something small, huddled. "Evan," she whispered. No answer. She approached slowly, each step soft, controlled. The flashlight beam locked onto the shape. A child, knees pulled to his chest, face buried in his arms. "Evan, it's okay. It's over. I'm here." She knelt, reached out. Her hand touched fabric. Soft, cold, too cold. And then she knew. This wasn't Evan. It wasn't even a living child. It was a mannequin, a child-sized mannequin, dressed in clothing identical to what Evan wore the day he vanished. Maeve's breath froze in her lungs. Who had placed it here, and why? Then the second clue revealed itself. Pinned to the mannequin's sleeve was a note, tiny, yellowed, and written in a child's uneven handwriting. I told you not to come back. Her skin crawled. This handwriting. She recognized it. It was hers, her own handwriting from childhood. But how? Before she could process it, a sudden scraping noise behind her. She spun around and saw a dark figure slip behind the far wall, vanishing through a crawl space opening too narrow for an adult body. But something had gone through. Something quick and silent. Maeve followed the crawl space into a smaller, darker chamber. It felt like a forgotten part of the attic, almost like an additional room hidden within the walls. She found scratch marks on the wooden beams, fresh ones, and small pieces of fabric, blue cotton. Evan's shirt. Her pulse thudded. She was close, too close. In the center of the cramped space lay a bundle wrapped in an old blanket. She pulled it open. Reveal, a small stuffed bear, its eyes torn out. And beneath it, a burner phone that vibrated the moment she touched it. She answered. A distorted voice whispered, "You shouldn't have come alone." Before she could speak, the voice added, "Look behind you." Maeve turned, but the crawl space was empty, just the echo of something unseen retreating deeper into the walls. Maeve retrieved the phone and noticed something bulging beneath the insulation. She pulled apart the fibers. A recorder, one her father used when he was sheriff. She pressed play. Static. Then her father's voice, jagged, shaken. "If you're hearing this, the thing in the walls isn't human." A pause, a breath, and it knows you're coming back. Her blood ran cold. Her father had hidden evidence here 22 years ago, and someone or something had been living in these walls ever since, watching, listening, waiting. As Maeve crawled back toward the main attic, her light flickered. Then she froze, because the mannequin, the one wearing Evan's clothes, was now sitting upright, head turned toward her, arms positioned differently than before. Someone had moved it while she was in the crawl space. She swallowed hard. "Who's here?" she whispered. Silence. And then a soft pattering sound above her, in the ceiling, like footsteps, but impossibly light, as if made by someone weightless, or a child trying not to be heard. Maeve raised her light and saw it, the attic ceiling panel shifting, something crawling inside, something alive, something that had been living here long before Evan disappeared, long before Maeve returned. And it wasn't hiding anymore. The ceiling panel trembled, dust drifting down in faint spirals. Maeve's breath slowed, her hand firm around the flashlight. The sound above her, soft footsteps or tiny dragging motions, moved steadily toward the far corner of the attic. Whatever was up there was small enough to hide in the narrowest spaces, fast enough to move without being seen, and eerily familiar with the layout of the house. She took a quiet step backward, not out of fear but calculation. She needed the thing above her to believe she was retreating. The house creaked as if considering her. Then silence. Maeve swept her light around the attic once more. The walls appeared to tremble under the beam, as though the house itself was breathing shallowly, hiding something within its ribs. That smell, cold iron and damp cloth, was stronger now. She moved toward the stairway, but not to leave. She paused halfway down, then pressed her ear to the wall. There, a faint rustling, a breath, a whisper of cloth brushing old wood. Someone was inside the wall, directly beside her, watching her. Maeve pressed the side of her flashlight against the wallpaper and dragged it downward. The old paper ripped easily, peeling away like dead skin to reveal the rotted boards underneath. She caught her breath. Scratch marks, dozens of them. Some shallow, some deep, some trailing downward as if tiny fingers had been clawing for escape. But the pattern was deliberate. 3 long scratches, 2 short ones, 3 long again, a repeating sequence, a code, not random panic, not desperation, communication. Maeve recognized the pattern. Her father used to tap that pattern on her bedroom door every night, a ritual. 323, their private signal. Are you awake? Her stomach tightened. Someone was using her father's signal inside the walls tonight, but the house had been abandoned for years. Nobody should know that code, unless they had been here long enough, unless they had been listening to her family all those years ago. A sudden bang from the front door jolted the house. Maeve spun around, hand instinctively going to the holster she wasn't wearing. Off duty or not, she felt naked without her weapon. Detective Calder. Samuel Briggs' voice trembled from below. Why you in there? I saw your car outside. Something didn't feel right. Thought I should check. Maeve exhaled slowly. Briggs, the jittery neighbor whose eyes wandered too much and whose voice cracked with false innocence. His flashlight's beam jittered along the walls as he stepped inside, casting twisting shadows. Maeve descended the stairs carefully. Briggs, what are you doing here? He swallowed, Adam's apple bobbing. I couldn't sleep. Kept thinking about that attic. Thought maybe I should have gone with you earlier. Maeve didn't buy it. Nobody wandered into this house willingly at night. Why did you say someone was in the attic earlier? She asked. His lips twitched. I saw a boy. Thought it was Evan, standing in the window. Maeve frowned. That window had been boarded from the inside. Nobody could stand in it. Not unless they knew how to slip into the walls. Not unless they weren't standing at all. Show me exactly where you were when you saw him, she demanded. Briggs nodded and stepped toward the front door, then froze. His flashlight beam pointed toward the dining room doorway. And Maeve saw it too. The attic door upstairs had just swung open, on its own, very slowly, very deliberately. Briggs' voice cracked. You didn't leave it that way, did you? No, Maeve whispered. Something was coming down. As the attic stairs began to creak one by one, Maeve found reality and memory blurring. The sound was too familiar, too much like 22 years ago. She remembered being a little girl again. Her father screaming for her to run. Her mother crying, clutching her wrist. The attic door swinging open. Footsteps descending, small, almost playful. But she never saw the face, only the silhouette, a child's shape, but not a child's movement. And now here she was, back in the same house, hearing the same steps, coming down toward her. Maeve raised her flashlight toward the stairs, heart pounding an unsteady rhythm. Briggs trembled behind her. Then, a small figure appeared at the top of the staircase. Short, skinny, barefoot, clothes shredded and dusty. For a moment, Maeve's breath caught. It looked like Evan, the missing boy. She took a step forward. Evan? Evan, are you hurt? Her voice remained low, steady. The figure tilted its head, not like a child, not like someone recognizing help, but like something studying her, analyzing her. Its eyes glinted in the dim light, too wide, too reflective, almost animal-like. Maeve froze. That wasn't Evan. The figure's thin lips pulled back into a jagged imitation of a smile. Then it scuttled, not walked, but scuttled down the stairs, movements disjointed, hands touching the railings as if trying to remember how to mimic a child's behavior. Briggs gasped. God almighty, what is that? Maeve stepped backward. Stay behind me. The figure paused at the bottom step. Then it lifted its head and whispered, voice cracking like old wood. Maeve! Her blood turned to ice. She had never heard Evan speak, but she had heard that voice before, 22 years ago, in this house, calling her name from the walls. Maeve reached out, inch by inch, hoping the creature would remain still long enough to analyze. But the moment her right foot shifted forward, the figure twisted its body in an inhuman angle and darted into the narrow gap between the staircase and the wall, sliding inside like a shadow drawn through a crack. Too fast, too silent. The boards snapped back in place behind it. Gone. Briggs fell to his knees, shaking violently. And Maeve, what in God's name was that? A kid? A demon? Maeve cut him off, voice controlled even though her nerves screamed. It wasn't Evan. Whatever it is, it's been living here long before he went missing. Briggs looked up at her, face pale, sweat streaming. You need to leave this place, Detective, right now, before it decides it doesn't want you in here either. Maeve stared at the wall where the creature vanished, and she said the words she didn't mean to say out loud. It knows me. It's always known me. As Briggs struggled to stand, Maeve noticed something on the staircase, a small scrap of paper. She picked it up, same handwriting as the note pinned on the mannequin, childish, uneven, but the message was new. You forgot what you left behind. Maeve's throat tightened. She hadn't left anything behind, not physically, but the house remembered her, and something inside it believed she had returned for a reason. She flipped the paper over and froze, because written on the back was a drawing, a childish sketch of a little girl standing beside her father at the base of the attic stairs. Maeve recognized the drawing. She had drawn it herself when she was 8, but she had never left it in the attic. She had burned it, so how was it here? She looked up at the ceiling, voice shaking for the first time. What are you? She whispered. And from the walls, faint, almost playful, came 3 soft knocks. 3, 2, 3. Are you awake? Maeve stepped back. She was awake now, more awake than she'd ever been. The air inside the Calder house felt heavier now, thick with memory, age, and an intelligence that felt almost aware of every breath Maeve took. Briggs leaned against the doorway, trembling, mumbling a prayer under his breath. His eyes darted from shadow to shadow as though the creature could burst through any wall at any moment. Maeve stood still at the base of the attic stairs, her knuckles tight around the flashlight. The note, the drawing she had burned decades ago, remained pinched between her fingers. Briggs, she said quietly, tell me the truth. Why are you really here? He swallowed hard. I told you. I couldn't sleep. You followed me, Maeve said flatly. Why? Briggs' eyes filled with something like fear or guilt. I knew your father. I knew what he was looking for when he lived in this house. And I know what he found. Maeve leaned in. And what was that? Briggs shook his head. Not here. Not with that thing listening. His voice cracked at the word thing. Maeve scanned the walls. She saw nothing, but she felt something watching. The house was listening. A soft thump echoed from somewhere near the dining room. A slow, dragging scrape followed. Briggs stiffened. And Maeve, that's it. That's the same sound I heard the night Evan vanished. Maeve's pulse quickened. Quiet, she whispered. She tilted her head, listening carefully. The sound came again, dragging, slow, measured. But it wasn't coming from the floorboards. It was coming from inside the walls behind her. And then, 3 slow knocks. 3, 2, 3. Her childhood signal. Maeve took a step toward the sound. Briggs grabbed her wrist. Don't. You don't know what's in. She pulled her arm free without looking at him. I'm done running from this house. The wall panels rattled softly as she approached, as if something inside sensed her nearness, something eager or restless. Her flashlight revealed a small seam at the edge of the wallpaper, almost invisible unless someone knew where to look. Maeve knew. Her father used to keep it hidden. The seam led to a false panel, and behind that, the space where she remembered hearing breathing as a child. Her hand hovered above the panel. Maeve, Briggs whispered, voice shaking. Don't open that. Please. She didn't listen. Maeve pressed the panel. It clicked open. Cold air spilled out, carrying with it a sour smell, old cloth, rust, and something like damp earth. The narrow passage beyond was pitch black, barely wide enough for a grown adult to crawl into. She swept her light inside. Claw marks. Again, but newer, sharper, like something had been passing through regularly. And on the floor, a small object. Maeve reached down and picked it up. A marble, blue, worn. The same kind she used to play with when she was 8. She closed her fist around it, her breath shaking. Behind her, Briggs whispered, "It's been collecting things. From you. From your family. For years." Maeve turned. "You knew." Briggs stepped back, eyes darting. "I never wanted to believe it was real. I thought I imagined it. But I lived next door. I heard the scratching, the tapping, the whispers. I saw things move in the windows when no one lived here." Maeve stepped toward him. "And you didn't call anyone? Report anything?" Briggs' voice cracked. "Would you? Who would believe me? Who believed your father? He tried. God knows he tried. But by the time people listened, he'd lost his mind." Maeve's jaw tightened. "My father didn't lose his mind." Briggs stared at her, eyes hollow. "Then you tell me, Detective, why did he board up every entrance to the attic and burn every piece of furniture in this house before he died?" Maeve inhaled sharply. Her father had done that. She remembered the flames, but not the reason, not the face he made as he told her and her mother to leave and never return. Her father wasn't afraid of this house. He was afraid of what lived in it. Maeve pointed to the narrow passage. "You're staying here. I need answers." Briggs shook violently. "I can't stay alone in this house. You'll be safer out here than wherever this leads." Briggs whispered, "Maeve, please." But she was already crawling inside. The walls closed around her immediately. Tight, suffocating, pressing. The wood groaned under her weight. Dust coated her throat. Her flashlight beam quivered across the cramped tunnel. She crawled deeper, each movement stirring up tiny dust storms. Behind her, Briggs' faint voice echoed. "And Maeve? Maeve, can you hear me?" But the walls swallowed his voice quickly. The tunnel sloped downward. Maeve followed it. Every board creaked like bones shifting. Then the sound started again. Scratching. Very close. Directly beneath her. As though something was crawling in a parallel crawl space beneath her own. Following her. Matching her movement. Scratch. Scratch. Drag. Maeve froze. Silence. Then, a whisper through the boards. "Maeve." Her name again. From below her. She swallowed hard. "Where is Evan?" she whispered back. No answer. Then a faint giggle. Childlike. Mocking. Maeve's breath quickened. She pushed forward faster. The tunnel widened slightly, opening into a cramped chamber behind the kitchen wall. Her flashlight swept across it, illuminating. Stacks of objects, arranged carefully, purposely. Small toys, buttons, coins, paper scraps, hair ribbons, broken dolls, marbles, a child's sock, a sheriff's badge, her father's badge, and, her breath caught, a photograph of herself at age 7, sitting on the same attic stairs she'd just descended. Her father was behind her, smiling, but the photo was wrong. Someone had drawn a crude shape behind her, a childlike figure standing in the shadows, watching her. Someone else had been in that picture the entire time. In the corner of the chamber, Maeve found a small wooden box. Old, handmade, the lid carved with her father's initials, TC. Her pulse thundered. She opened it. Inside lay a weathered leather notebook. Her father's handwriting scrawled across the cover. "Do not let it out." Maeve's throat tightened. She opened the notebook slowly. Inside were pages filled with frantic notes, sketches, and dates. Her father had documented everything. The noises Maeve heard as a child, the shadows moving in the corners, objects disappearing and reappearing, the small footprints in the dust, the whispers in the attic, the scratching. Her father had written one line over and over. It wants her. It always wanted her. Maeve's body went cold. Her father hadn't been trying to protect the house from the world. He'd been trying to protect her from whatever lived inside the walls. And then she turned to the final page. A drawing, not a sketch. A detailed, desperate rendering of the creature. Long limbs, hollow cheeks, wide glassy eyes, a child's proportions, but starved, stretched, wrong. And below it her father had written, "It doesn't age. It learns. It mimics. It remembers." Maeve's hand trembled as she reached the last line, smeared as though written in a hurry. Don't let it touch her. The boards beneath Maeve shifted. Something was directly underneath her again. Then, a single whisper rose through the floorboards. Breathy, soft, close. I remember you. Maeve jerked backward, her flashlight shaking wildly. And then something pressed upward through the boards beneath her palm. A small hand, thin, cold, fingers too long, reaching for her. She scrambled backward as the boards cracked. The creature was digging its way up toward her, trying to touch her, trying to grab her. Maeve whipped around and crawled toward the nearest exit tunnel, chest tight with panic. Behind her, the hand pushed further through the wood, fingers wriggling, searching, and the whisper followed. You came back, just like I wanted. Maeve crawled faster. The tunnel shook. The boards cracked. The creature followed. Maeve crawled blindly through the narrowing passage, her heart hammering against her ribs like a trapped animal. The tunnel pressed in tight around her, too tight, and the boards behind her cracked with each lurch of the creature clawing its way upward. The whisper followed her like breath on the back of her neck. Don't run. You came back for me. She squeezed deeper into the shadows, pushing past splintered beams and torn insulation, forcing herself to ignore the way the wood groaned beneath her knees. Dust coated her throat, making it hard to swallow. Her flashlight beam jittered across the darkness, carving thin slices of clarity through the claustrophobic black. Behind her, the creature's hand scraped at the boards, long nails dragging slow grooves, not frantic, not angry, almost playful, as if this were a game they had played before. The tunnel suddenly widened, dropping her into a cramped cavity beneath the main staircase. Maeve collapsed onto the dusty floorboards, gasping for breath, flashlight trembling in her grip. She scrambled upright, sweeping her light across the chamber. What she saw made her stomach twist. This wasn't a random crawl space. It was a nest. Shredded blankets, small bones, clumps of hair, human and animal, scraps of clothing, a broken sheriff's radio, a child's notebook with half the pages torn out, and something else, a tiny wooden toy soldier. Its paint was chipped, its head cracked, but Maeve recognized it immediately. Her father had carved it for her when she was 6. She whispered, How did it get here?" A rustle behind her answered. Not the creature, but Briggs. He slithered into the chamber with shaking limbs, sweat beading on his forehead. "I couldn't stay out there alone," he whispered. "The house, it's shifting. The doors slammed shut. It doesn't want me here." Maeve pointed her flashlight at him. "Briggs, look around." Her voice was low, trembling with rage and fear. "This thing has been collecting pieces of my life, my family, for years." Briggs stared at the objects with wide, horrified eyes. "How long has it lived here?" he asked. Maeve's breath hitched. Her father's ledger had the answer. She flipped it open. The first date on record, 1972. The creature had been here long before Maeve was born. 50 years, Briggs whispered. "It's been hiding in these walls for 50 years. Maeve nodded slowly. "No, it's been growing, learning, watching." Briggs stepped back, dizzy. "It's not human." Maeve cut him off. "Briggs, what did you mean when you said you knew what my father found?" His silence was answer enough. "Tell me," Maeve demanded. Briggs swallowed hard. "Your father didn't discover it. The creature found him. And then it found you." A sudden, thunderous bang vibrated through the floorboards above them. Maeve and Briggs froze. Then, footsteps. Slow, deliberate, moving across the hallway toward the basement door. Maeve's pulse throbbed. "Briggs, there's no way it could fit through the turn in the crawl space behind us." Briggs paled. "Then that means—" Maeve finished the sentence for him. "It used another route." They crawled toward the tunnel exit, emerging into the dim pantry behind the kitchen. The house felt colder now, heavier. The air itself seemed to hum with a low vibration. Something had changed. The creature wasn't hiding anymore. Maeve stepped cautiously into the hallway. Her eyes locked immediately on the basement door. It was open, not wide, just a few inches, but enough. A trickle of warm air drifted up from below, carrying the smell of rust and wet stone. Briggs whispered, "Maeve, please don't go down there." Maeve's jaw clenched. "My father's ledger ends in the basement. Whatever he found, it starts here." Briggs grabbed her arm, trembling violently. "Maeve, I think your father trapped it down there, boarded everything up. But when he died and the house was abandoned, it got out," Maeve finished. She moved toward the basement door. The old wood moaned softly as though exhaling a welcome, or a warning. Maeve descended the basement stairs. The temperature dropped with every step. Her flashlight flickered, fighting the oppressive dark. The basement was larger than she remembered, darker, and unmistakably alive with sound. Her footsteps echoed strangely, too slow, too distant, like the walls were absorbing the noise. As she stepped off the final stair, her light swept across the space. A concrete floor, rust-stained pipes, old crates, and a wide, circular scorch mark in the center. The remains of a fire, her father's fire. A memory flickered in her mind. Her father dragging furniture into the basement, old dressers, chairs, bedding, and burning them in a heap. He looked terrified, not of the fire, but of what he saw in the shadows above it. Maeve knelt beside the scorched floor. Her fingers brushed the blackened concrete. Her father had been trying to destroy something. But what? Her light caught something glinting in the soot. A metal latch. Small, rusted, half-melted. Maeve brushed away the ash. It was a lock, a broken one, and beneath it, carved faintly into the floor, "Don't open it." Briggs' voice cracked behind her. "And Maeve, we need to leave. This place, it's wrong." Maeve ignored him. Her fingers traced the edge of the scorch mark. Then she noticed something else, a faint seam in the concrete, a trapdoor. Her father hadn't burned furniture. He'd burned the cover to something hidden beneath the floor. Maeve wedged her fingers into the seam and pulled. The trapdoor lifted an inch, then another. A foul stench rolled out, like decay and stagnant water. Briggs gagged. "What is?" Maeve opened the door completely. Her flashlight revealed a narrow shaft leading straight down, stone-lined, damp, shaking ever so slightly. She aimed her beam deeper. Something moved below, not quickly, but slowly, as though rising. Maeve's breath hitched. Tiny, pale fingers gripped the stone edge. Then a small, thin face emerged from the darkness. Evan. His eyes were glassy, unfocused, his lips purple, his skin damp and gray. But he was alive, and he whispered, "Detective Calder, it took me, it kept me." Maeve reached for him, but then Evan's head jerked sharply sideways, as if something behind him had yanked him back. A second hand, longer, bonier, clamped around his shoulder. Evan screamed. Briggs stumbled backwards, horrified. "Maeve, pull him up." Maeve grabbed Evan's wrist, but as she did, she saw something in the shaft below. Eyes, huge, reflective, Not one pair, multiple, dozens, watching her. The creature wasn't alone. All those years, all that silence. It wasn't a creature. It was a nest. Something yanked Evan downward with impossible force. No, I know. Maeve screamed, gripping him tighter. But Evan's hand slipped through hers, slick with sweat and grime. He fell back into the darkness, screaming. Briggs grabbed Maeve's shoulders and pulled her away from the shaft just as something lunged upward. A pale, spindly arm, fingers splayed, reaching for her. But it stopped at the threshold. The creature couldn't cross the line of burned concrete. Her father's fire hadn't been a failed attempt. It had been a barrier, a prison, and now Maeve understood the truth. Her father hadn't trapped the creature in the house. He had trapped something beneath it, and the creature in the walls, the one that knew her name, stole her childhood things, whispered her father's code. That creature was not the thing in the shaft. It had been guarding the barrier, protecting Maeve, or keeping her here. She stepped back, horrified. "What are you?" she whispered. From behind her, in the darkness above the stairs, a small voice answered. "You knew me, before you forgot." Maeve spun around. The attic creature stood at the top of the basement steps. Small, fragile, eyes shimmering like wet glass. Not attacking, just watching, waiting. Maeve's blood froze. The creature wasn't the predator. It was the gatekeeper, and it had been waiting 22 years for her return. Detective Mara Vance stood at the foot of the attic ladder, her gloved fingers still resting on the rope that dangled from the ceiling. The thin wooden rungs trembled slightly, though no one had touched them for several minutes now. A cold draft seeped down from the open square above, air too cold for a sealed attic in early autumn. Behind her, Elias Crow paced slowly across the creaking floorboards of the hallway. His breathing remained shallow, as though each inhale carried shards of memory that cut him from the inside. Mara didn't look back at him. She didn't want to see his face yet. Not after what she had just heard in the attic. Not after the voice. But the house itself, it was listening. She could feel it, its wooden ribs contracting with every shift in temperature, as if quietly exhaling the secrets it had held for decades. "You shouldn't have opened it," the voice had whispered earlier, so close it almost brushed her ear. A woman's voice. Or was it? Mara swallowed hard and pulled herself up the ladder again, lantern clutched in her left hand. The dim light cast a trembling circle on the attic floorboards as she rose into the gloom. The attic greeted her with the same suffocating stillness. Dust suspended in the cold air like ash, the scent of old cedar rot, and the faint metallic tinge of forgotten things decaying in the dark. Elias's voice broke the silence below her. "Detective, is it still up there?" His words hung like damp cloth in the air. Mara didn't answer immediately. She scanned the far corner again, the same corner where she had seen the pale outline of movement earlier, the same corner where a stack of boxes sat askew, as if someone had fled from behind them not long before she arrived. But now, something else drew her attention. A shape behind the rafters. No, more like the suggestion of a shape, as though the darkness itself thickened there, quietly pulsing. Mara steadied her breathing. She approached. Each step shifted the floor under her boots with a long, low, aching creak. Then she heard it again, too faint for certainty but unmistakable. A soft, stuttering exhale. Human. Controlled. Hiding. She raised the lantern and stepped around the boxes. At first, it looked like a ragged pile of fabric tossed into the shadows, a nest of forgotten clothes and tattered blankets. But the closer she stepped, the clearer the details became. The blankets formed a boundary. The old coat lay deliberately spread, like bedding. A half-burned candle sat in the dust. A small circle of soot marked where it had been lit many times over. Someone had been living up here. Recently. Her heart slammed against her ribs. At the center of the nest lay a small wooden box. Stained. crushed slightly on one side, and carved with an emblem she recognized immediately, a spiral of thorns. The same emblem burned into the underside of Elias Crow's childhood bedroom floorboard. The same symbol found on the back of the photograph discovered beneath the stairs last week. The same symbol that appeared in Elias's old, forgotten therapy transcripts. Transcripts she had read just hours before coming here. She knelt slowly beside the box. Her breath fogged in the cold air as she lifted the lid. Inside lay a stack of folded papers for objects wrapped in cloth and a photograph lying on top. She held the photo close to the lantern. It showed the Crow family attic from decades ago. Same wooden beams, same window, same peculiar, crooked angle of the ceiling. But this photo was different. Very different, because standing in the center of the attic was a little boy, maybe 8 years old. His small hands hung stiffly at his sides. His clothes were rumpled. Dirt smeared across his cheek, but it was his expression that sent a cold spike down Mara's spine. He wasn't afraid. He wasn't confused. He wasn't crying. He was smiling directly at the camera. And behind him, half hidden in the shadows, barely visible except for the outline of a hunched figure, stood someone else. Someone tall. Someone cloaked in darkness. Someone with their hand resting on the boy's shoulder. Mara's pulse quickened. She knew the child instantly. It was Elias. Below her, the floorboards creaked. Elias had stepped onto the bottom of the ladder. Mara. His voice trembled. What do you see? Mara lowered the photograph, slightly, though she did not turn around. Her voice stayed calm, steady, but it carried the weight of something she had no intention of revealing yet. Elias, she said quietly, you need to stay where you are. But Elias ignored her. He climbed one rung, then another, and as he did, something shifted in the corner of the attic. A soft scrape, a hush of fabric, the faint, unmistakable sound of someone drawing back into deeper shadow. They were not alone. The lantern's flame flickered violently, as though reacting. Mara inhaled sharply. Then the attic went still again, deathly still. She rose to her feet, photo still in hand, and stepped back from the nest of blankets. Her lantern swept the darkness, catching glimpses of what could have been movement or memory, or something far older than either. Behind her, Elias's head emerged from the opening in the floor. He looked pale, strained, sweat glistening at his hairline. His eyes darted to the photograph in her hand, then to the nest, then to the shadows behind the rafters. All the color drained from his face. No, he whispered. No, it can't be. Mara's throat tightened. Elias, she whispered. Tell me who used to hide up here with you. His lips trembled, but his eyes did not move. They were fixed, frozen, staring past Mara, into the dark corner behind her, where something began to move. Something slow, and quiet, and deliberate, where something was finally stepping out of hiding. After all these years, the shadows in the attic began to shift. Mara's lantern trembled in her hands, casting grotesque silhouettes across the beams. Elias stood frozen at the base of the ladder, pale as bone, his eyes fixed on the corner of the attic where the darkness seemed to gather into a single shape. It was small, hunched, almost childlike, but the movements were wrong. Too deliberate, too intelligent. Each step it took seemed calculated, like it had been practicing this approach for decades. Its head tilted unnaturally, and the faintest glimmer of light reflected off its eyes. Glassy, hollow, and impossibly old. Mara swallowed. Her mind raced. Every story her father had written in his ledger. Every warning she had read. Every memory of the house it all led here. This is it, she whispered, voice trembling. This is what's been hiding all this time. Elias shook his head slowly, whispering to himself. It's not real. It can't be. Mara stepped forward. She held the photograph from the nest. Look, she said, her voice steadying despite the panic curling in her chest. This is what it looks like. This is who's been watching you." The creature paused. Its head jerked slightly, and then, in a voice that was simultaneously Elias's and not his, it spoke. "I am what remembers. I am what waits. I am what you cannot forget." Mara froze. Her father's notes, her childhood memories, the scratch marks, the attic whispers, all of it clicked into terrifying coherence. This wasn't just one creature. It was the product of decades of forgotten children, lost lives, and the house itself. A consciousness that had learned to mimic, to watch, to replicate the people it observed. It wasn't merely alive, it was sentient. It had learned to hide, to manipulate, to guard its territory, and now it had been waiting for her. Mara stepped closer, forcing herself not to flinch. She realized something crucial. The creature had been protecting her all along. Every time it whispered, every time it mimicked, it was testing her, preparing her, leading her to understand the truth buried beneath the house. It wanted her to see the basement, to see Evan, to see what had been trapped there all these years. Mara's mind sharpened. This was not just a predator, it was a gatekeeper. And the gate it guarded was the dark secret beneath the house. The creature took another step forward. Its movements were deliberate, almost ceremonial. And then it crouched low and gestured toward the ladder that led back down. Mara understood without words. The house had brought her here for closure, for understanding, and maybe for survival. Mara descended the ladder again, lantern held high. The basement had changed in subtle ways. Older, heavier, more oppressive. But the scorch marks from her father's fire were intact. The trapdoor was open. Evan lay at the edge of the pit, trembling but alive. His small body was weak, but he recognized Mara immediately. "Detective," he whispered, voice cracked with fear. It said to wait. Mara extended her hand. She reached for him, and then she noticed the figures along the walls. Pale, hunched shapes, the other children of the house. Not fully human, not fully ghost. They had been trapped beneath the house, trapped between the walls, nurtured by the darkness, waiting for someone to come and see them. The attic creature was the only one who could navigate the walls freely. It had been keeping them safe from human intrusion, and it had been waiting for the right person to release the truth. Mara lifted Evan carefully. The creature remained at the threshold of the basement stairs, watching silently. It did not attack. It did not advance. It simply observed like a sentinel, and then, almost imperceptibly, it turned back into the shadows of the attic, gone but still present, watching, waiting. Mara emerged from the house into the gray dawn. Fog still hung over Bramble Hollow. She carried Evan in her arms. Elias followed, shaken but alive. The neighbors arrived shortly after, drawn by the sound of movement and Mara's earlier calls for help. But when they asked about the attic, the creature, or what had been living in the house, Mara said only, "Nothing you need to see." The house remained silent. The shadows deepened, and the secrets within the walls did not leave. Mara looked back once. The attic window stared down at her. For a fleeting moment, she thought she saw movement behind the glass. A small figure, crouched and watching, waiting knowing. She shivered and walked away. Some mysteries, she realized, are meant to be witnessed, not solved. Weeks later, the Calder House was boarded again. No one went inside. The townsfolk whispered. Children dared each other to peek at the windows, and the fog never seemed to fully lift around the hill. But the attic remained, and something still waited within. For the next person, for the next mind, for the next life brave or foolish enough to enter. And Mara knew this, deep down. Whatever hid in the attic, it would never forget. It would always remember.